these expenditures will increase employment opportunities, at least for some people, and that will also build probably the production facilities, and that will have an impact on the long run growth of the economy. So those are some of the challenges. I would not say that we cannot do it, but the policymakers have to be very prudent, very practical. The problem in a democracy like India is that sometimes our policy decisions are made keeping in mind our political or the government's political interest. And I hope that the government will be able to rise beyond the politics and will think about the long run interest of the economy. The other challenges, which I always am very worried about, is the disruption in the education system, because our education system has been severely disrupted. The schools and colleges have been closed for a prolonged period of time. As a result, there have been learning deficits. And in a country like United States or in other advanced countries, we already have had an infrastructure to teach and learn remotely. I would not say that it has not been disrupted. It has been disrupted, because even in a country like US, you would think that there will be no digital divide. That means everybody will have access to the digital capabilities or digital technology, but that is not the case. There is a small section of the population that does not have access to the digital technology. As a result, it has not been where it should have been, but still, I think over the years, over last 10, 15 years, this country or other developed countries have developed this capability to teach and learn remotely. And as a result, it probably has not been disrupted as much as it has been disrupted in countries like India. And the fact that the students or the teachers in rural areas or semi-urban areas have not been able to use the digital technology effectively to teach and learn. And at the same time, probably in urban areas, the situation is a little better. I would not say it is 100% better, but little better. And that has created a divide, and that division will potentially lead to a wider socioeconomic divide in the society. And I'm really worried about that. And so this also should be an opportunity for educational institutions, for educators, and also for the students to think about going forward how we will face this kind of challenges. For the government, of course, there is a lot to do. For example, in 21st century, I think universal access to the internet is a must. Having access to the internet or having access to the technology will not do much unless we are digitally literate, right? So one of the problems with many of our teachers has been that we are not digitally literate. We have the gadgets, we probably have the access to the technology, but at the same time, we don't know how to use them. And going forward, I think that this is an opportunity for us to learn. I did not know much about what capability we have in India, but like this one, I was presenting in one of the colleges, I think in July, and then I was looking at what capability we have in India. I found out that actually University Grant Commission, under the direction of Ministry of Human Resource Development, together with all the IITs, they already have created a platform. They have a lot of resources, but unfortunately, the colleges, the universities, or the schools, they have not been able to use those resources. For example, if you have used the SWAYAM platform, which is the platform the UGC and IITs have created over the years, there are a lot of resources. There are access to a lot of books, you don't have to pay anything. There are very nicely done video lectures, as well as, of course, still they are developing, but I think although limited, there is access to a lot of very important and very, I think, useful resources. But then our colleges and universities have not been able to use those. I understand that there is a problem of connectivity, or there is a problem of access to the internet, because if you don't have access to internet, it doesn't matter how much resources you have, you will not be able to access those. But then I think even in those places where access to the internet is probably not that much of a problem, the educational institutions, the teachers and students have not been able to use them simply because there is less awareness, or there is less, in some cases, there is less willingness on the part of the institution or on the part of the participants. So again, I think in the educational sphere, we have to do a lot, and there are a lot of opportunities. It's good that we are now aware of what are the challenges. And I would think that all the educators, just not kind of thinking or relying on what the government is going to do. Of course, government will have to do, but on our own, I think we can do a lot to improve our situation, to create a very robust education system. Now, if you look at the healthcare system is also overstressed. Many of you probably have the experience that now if you are ill or if you are sick with something other than COVID-19, it is very difficult to get or receive the healthcare that you would expect. And that is, again, should make us think about our healthcare system. Of course, our healthcare system is not a robust healthcare system. In addition to this healthcare system, I would also talk about the public health system, because public health in a country like India is very, very important. Only positive thing that has happened in the public health area is probably a large number of people are now aware of their personal hygiene. They probably are washing their hands, they are using the mask when they go out. And those are some of the positive things associated with this episode of pandemic. But then there is a lot to do in the public health sphere, and we don't have a robust public health system. Again, public health is slightly different from the healthcare system, right? Public health is a system where everybody can be an active participant. The schools, colleges, universities, students, teachers, everybody can be a participant, and we can help build a robust public health system. I would think that our educational institutions, because our educational institutions will think about these opportunities, and they will work towards making both the education and the healthcare system a robust one. And again, I am not denying the fact that the government doesn't have any role to play. Of course, government has a big role to play, but at the same time, we also have to do our own parts. Now, when you think about this education and healthcare, right? Our education and health, these both are being disrupted. And as you know, Professor Amartya Sen has said that these are very important to build the capabilities to enjoy the freedom of choice, which he has interpreted as development, right? The fact that both are being disrupted during this episode of COVID-19 pandemic, going forward, it obviously has affected our overall development. So we should be very mindful and careful about these two aspects. And I'm really, as being an educator, I am really worried about the education system. Of course, I am also worried about public health, and I hope the opportunities created by this pandemic, or the fault lines that have been laid bare by this pandemic, people will take it as an opportunity and will try to rebuild or try to build a very robust system where in the next challenge, whenever there is a next crisis, we'll be doing much better than how we have done in this pandemic. So having said that, so we have talked about the challenges at the individual level in our economic life, challenges for the businesses, challenges for the governments. We have talked about the challenges associated with our education system and the healthcare system. And so all these challenges that we have talked about, they all have created opportunities for us to rethink about going forward, what changes we want to make. And when you think about the policies, the government policies, in the beginning, Dr. Sharma was talking about what policies the government has tried to implement it, but at the same time, these policies or these measures, I would not say policy, these are kind of short-term measures, have not been very effective. So when I talk to small traders or small businesses back home, and normally I regularly talk to some of my friends back in Mongoldoi, and I hear that they are not benefiting from the measures that the Indian government has taken or whatever Reserve Bank of India has done. For example, Reserve Bank of India actually did something which was very early on this entire episode. They injected a lot of liquidity into the system. That means they put a lot of money into the system so that small businesses, businesses in general, even households, they can receive this money that they will need during this period of crisis. But that money or that liquidity infusion has not transmitted to every part of the economy. And what are the reasons? Of course, there are problems with our financial as well as administrative system, and they don't work the way they should work. The other problem is a large number of economic activities or businesses, they take place in the informal sector. And as a result, it is very difficult to connect with this formal system that we have, the formal financial system or the formal administrative system we have. Many of my friends who are small traders or small businesses, they are not receiving the loans or the help from the bank because they don't have a bank account or they don't have enough collateral. They don't have anything to provide as collateral. Those are systemic problems, and that's where we have to work on. We have been talking about financial inclusion for a long period of time now. Although I would say that financial inclusion has increased over the years, but still I think there's a lot of things to do about the financial system. Of course, during this disruption, the banking system, and when I say financial system, generally we talk about the banking system has not been working because the banking service is also being disrupted, right? And in that case, how do we use technology? Because we have, I think, great minds in the field of technology, but we have not been able to use those great minds or great ideas to our benefit. And that has been something that we need to worry about, we need to think about. I think the greatest lesson that we should learn from this episode that we do not have a robust social safety net. And as a result, the vulnerable sections of the society are being disproportionately affected by this pandemic. In the very beginning, we are aware of this migrant laborers crisis. And these migrant laborers, many of those growth centers in the country, like Delhi, Gujarat, or Maharashtra, or the states in the south, they are heavily dependent on migrant workers. So when lockdown was announced, they were left to themselves. And that created a major challenge or problem. And the fact that we do not have a system to take care of these migrant laborers, and these are the vulnerable section of the society, kind of laid bare the inefficiencies or inadequacies of our social safety nets. I think we need to really take this challenge, and we need to use it as an opportunity to think seriously about going forward what we should do about our labor law, what we should do to protect these sections of the society which are very, very important for the economy. At the same time, I think we do not protect them enough. And again, when I talk about social safety net, it is not just about creating social safety net by the government, but also at the society level, at the village level, at the small town level. We should think seriously about creating social safety nets. And I think we can do that. For last 2-3 months, I have been talking about management of common property resources. And that is an area where I don't see too many people kind of putting their effort or thinking through the issues. And I think by managing common property resources, a village or a small town can generate revenues, can create rainy day funds, so that whenever there is a crisis like that, at least there is some safety nets for the society as a whole. And then when I say society as a whole, particularly, I'm talking about the vulnerable sections of the society. Again, those are some of the areas where I think there are challenges. At the same time, there are opportunities. Going forward, there will be other challenges. For example, during this time, during last 6 months, of course, people are businesses around the world, or people in general, the scientists, the innovators, they are not sitting idle. They have been constantly thinking. They are probably overworking on some of the innovations that can potentially kind of improve our individual as well as our collective lives. And so when this pandemic will be over, we'll get back to our normal life. We all will be hit by a lot of changes. And these changes will be in the way we work, in the way we travel, in the way we teach and learn, in the way we lead our everyday life. So you would not think that, well, there has not been anything going on right now. There have been a lot of changes that are going on. For example, the fact that I'm speaking to you from the United States itself is a result of an innovation, right? And in this period, of course, platforms like Zoom or Google Meet, or they actually have done quite well, and they have added a lot of new stuff into their existing platform in order to tackle or in order to handle the emerging issues. Now, sometimes I feel funny because a few years back, when first we heard about Skype, and Skype was probably the first video conferencing platform. And that was a very exciting time. That was a very exciting innovation. But Skype is nowhere to be seen now. And this crisis, the Zoom or Webex, or in fact, Zoom is probably the biggest beneficiary out of this crisis, because it's been widely used by almost everyone in the world, right? So at the same time, Zoom has improved over last 6 months, and going forward, who knows what? So all these minds have been working to solve problems. At the same time, they are getting ideas to create new things. And as a result, as I said, we will have a lot of changes after this episode is over. And then adjusting to these changes will be a challenge, right? So going forward, these will be our challenges. Of course, we'll have to take care of how we earn our bread. At the same time, we also create a system where we will have enough safety nets at the individual level, at society level, at the national level. Of course, these challenges are you cannot think about economic challenges in isolation, because you will have to bring in other challenges. There are challenges in the political arena. There are challenges in the social side of our life as well. For example, if you look at the political aspect of our life, there have been a lot of changes in politics, not only in India, but around the world. And that will play an important role how we tackle these economic challenges. Similarly, in the society or in our psychological life, there have been challenges. So how these challenges together will interact will also affect how we tackle or how we'll handle these economic challenges. So having said that, I think I will stop. I have spoken enough. And if you have any question, I'll be happy to take those questions. And I'm looking forward to listening to Mayur Bora. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Our interaction session will be after the completion of the board session. So thank you for your insightful and productive presentation. Already the participant has given very good comments on your presentation, sir. You could touch all the things that COVID-19 has spread on the world economy, it may be from the world economy, say the personal domestic life, and all the aspects of our life. So we are quite impressed by your very spontaneous, very simple presentation. Thank you, sir. Again, we will meet you after the Mayur sir's presentation in the interaction session, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, then.
Sir.
May I request Mr. Navakomal Bora? Mr. Navakomal Bora, Assistant Professor of Economics, Marangi College, to introduce our second resource person, Mr. Mayur Bora, one of the most influential writer of Assamese literature. So I request Mr. Navakomal Bora to start his introduction. Okay, yeah, go on. No, you are not audible. Please. No. No. Am I audible?
Yes.
Good morning, Dr. Hindranath sir, and good morning, good evening to rest of all. Respected Principal sir, respected Chairman sir, respected research persons, Dr. Hindranath sir and Mayur sir, respected my dear participants and my colleagues. Today I am very glad to get the opportunity to introduce Mayur sir. Mayur sir is one of the most well-known cricket writer and motivational speaker. He is an ex-Cottonian and did his graduation from Ansar's College under the University of Delhi. After graduation from that college, he joined NABARD as an assistant manager. Over for the past more than 20 years, he has been associated with NABARD and holds the post of Deputy General Manager of NABARD. Though he is busy with his profession, he is a critically acclaimed writer with many books to his credit. He started his writings during his school days. Now he writes in both Assamese and in English. He is an expert translator. He has translated short stories of Dilip Bora into English, which was published in the form of a book titled as All Those Earrings. Not only that, but Bora sir is a motivational speaker and social commentator. He has already made his mark across the state of Assam also. His writings are vast range of issues like Westernism, casteism, and anarchy. Nevertheless, he is also associated with some of the leading regional as well as national newspapers like House Post, Economic Times, Orissa Post, Assam Tribune, and the Sentinel, among others. Many articles of Moivasar have been published in these papers. For his literary works, he has been awarded many prestigious awards, including the Sahitya Sabha Award, Pramabir Chandranath Sharma Award, and Dr. Modini Stambara Sahitya Award. His most influential books among the Assamese people are Pothamasta Hoshinipi Shankar Sangha and Brahmanyabadi Kulyadawar Aru Ahom. The most well-received books are Ohomia Swabhimano Ruprekha and Abegor Kumuli Phali. However, he has written many other books like Ohomia Trojyoti, Chirodin Ohomia, Onubhavar Protidhani, Bhavanar Swarlipi, Sintar Bhangnangsha, Chetanar Spondon, Jatibhed Protha Aru Sankadev, Hindu Dharma Ishwar Nastikota, Random Reflection, and Pratyahar Protidhani. Parashar is also a well-known face on Assamese television. He not only likes to deliver speeches, but he is also a good commentator in both Assamese and English. He has delivered speeches in various colleges and universities of Assam. In this webinar, the time duration is not enough to introduce Moivasar, and many things remain behind. So, I'm sorry, sir, for not describing everything broadly. With these few words, I request Moivasar to deliver your valuable speech and hope your speech will make the webinar a fruitful and successful one. In this opportunity, sir, I must say we are so proud of you, and the family of Marangi Mahabidyalaya's good wishes are always with you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Over to Moivasar, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Nabakumal Bora, for a very flattering kind of introduction, which mostly I do not deserve. Anyway, thank you for that. Lot of Boras today. Mr. Jugal Juti Bora, who introduced Dr. Hiranya Nath, my very close friend and a very erudite and distinguished scholar and economist who has been teaching in USA for last more than 20 years. Inaugurator of the program, Dr. Sharma, who had the privilege or distinction of working as the principal of JDSJ College, the college in which I delivered a foundation day lecture maybe 4 or 5 years back. Principal Dr. Borua, my friend Dipti, and all the members of this Marangi Mahabidyalaya family. You have been telling that it's a small college, the college which has been provincialized sometime late in 20th century and all. But I know Hiranya will agree with me. There's a famous dictum or maxim that small is beautiful. I think it is Shoemaker's theory. And I think Marangi Mahabidyalaya, despite having a lot of challenges after being set up and after being the government formalities of being provincialized and all, whatever you have been doing in the so-called interior area of Assam, in Golaghat district of Assam, is I think truly, truly commendable. So I am deeply delighted and hugely gratified to have been welcomed by my dear friend Dipti Tamuli when she told me that I have to come, and when I came to know that Hiranya Nath will also be there, I became overjoyed. I became ecstatic at the same time. And the second moment itself, I developed a lot of butterflies in my stomach. Because Hiranya as a friend is a different person. But Hiranya as an erudite scholar and will be speaking in the same webinar, and I had the privilege of sharing the same webinar. I think it definitely should give butterflies to many other academics, scholars, and not to a very simple social commentator like me. I do not have the academic underpinnings or scholastic overtones to buttress or to justify my lecture on the economic issue that has been very nicely articulated and enunciated by Dr. Nath in last more than, I think, 45 to 50 minutes. I thought he will be speaking somewhat more so that my job would become easier. But even nevertheless, I think you have made my job easier, and I thank Dr. Nath for that. I am somewhat intrigued and I am somewhat amused by the nomenclature you have used while giving the name of this particular webinar. The economic challenges in the post-COVID world. And I'm very happy, Hiranyo, during the initial part of his lecture, he was telling how robustly optimistic he is. He was telling that problems are galore, but there are a lot of opportunities in this world. We have to leverage, we have to capitalize on those opportunities. So there's this kind of tough and challenging days will be behind us very soon in the foreseeable future. But somehow I feel, metaphorically speaking, figuratively speaking, we are in a tunnel. We are in a tunnel expecting to see the light on the other side of the tunnel. But somehow that light, if the tunnel can be compared with the present situation that has come to the world due to coronavirus or COVID-19, and the light can be an empirical formula containing the medicine or the vaccine, that somehow has proved to be elusive till now. But even then, we cannot allow our optimism, we cannot allow our positivism to wither away. We know he has given statistics about the disease also, despite quantifying the statement that I am not a health expert. I think apart from the economic data that Dr. Nath has shared, I think the health statistics also, what he shared in the beginning of his lecture, has really made it very easy for us to set a narrative based on which we can discuss many other things. I think for that also, Dr. Hiranyo Nath deserves accolades and appreciation from all the people who are presently glued to their devices, maybe a tablet, maybe a mobile phone, maybe a laptops, to listen to his erudite lecture. So when I say it's a tunnel, because we don't know when the light is coming. Initially, we thought when initially it struck and the first lockdown came in the country, we thought by the time of Diwali that we'll have some good times. But now people are telling that Diwali may be the peak time when we know that daily 84,000 people are falling sick or afflicted with the virus, as the testing thing has gone up in India, like in most of the other developed countries like USA. So even then, post-COVID seems to be a very ambitious term to me. Why I'm telling, if you want to develop a roadmap, and in that context, if you are telling that let us discuss about the post-COVID world, in what way we are going to tackle the economic challenges, in what way we are going to tackle the societal cleavages that have become very pronounced due to this virus, due to this disease. I can accept that. But I think to talk about post-COVID world as things stand today is somewhat a little bit difficult. I don't say it is premature, it is somewhat difficult. But having said that, I am also concerned, or I also know about that fact that we must prepare from now onwards. And for that, the guiding principle can be optimism, as Hiranyo has enunciated. Guiding principle can be, I think, being pragmatic and being careful when we are talking, especially in the context of Assam, that not many people are following the rules and regulations, the standard operating procedures of wearing a mask, and everything has been thrown to the winds. In the last 1 month, in many parts of Assam, people have become really very reckless and careless. I think that has to be brought to an end. And for bringing this to an end, we should not depend only on the government. In an educational, so-called small institution or college like Marangi College can also do a lot. I appeal to all the professors, I appeal to all the teachers and the students and the people who love this family. You must try to do, as it is our duty, my duty, Dr. Nath's duty, it is also your duty. And I know very well that you must have been doing this in your day-to-day life. So this is my initial appeal to all the people. I don't want to go to the economic aspect, because Dr. Hiranyo Nath has so beautifully elucidated the economic challenges and in what way we can see some light among the dark clouds. He has also hinted about that. So I think I will not hazard an assumption or presumption about the economic front. I will mainly be talking about from the healthcare point of view and also from the social point of view or the societal point of view. See, initially we talked about flattening the curve. Now I think most of the people, at least in India, do not use the word, because we know that in the process of flattening the curve, our initial enthusiasm, our initial thoughts or initial bravery that we'll be able to tackle it very fast has also been flattened. I don't say that people have become, people in India, be it government or civil society, we have not become despondent. We are not despairing about the fact. I am not loudly lamenting the fact that we have not been able to flatten the curve. But some of the lexicon, some of the terminology that we have been using in the beginning of the disease have also changed. I think for a social commentator like me, these are also very, very interesting aspects. I think we must keep in view all these terminologies, because it ultimately represents our thought process. The collective thought process of the society gets reflected by these terminologies, by this rhetorical statement, by politicians at times, by some kind of sloganeering that very often we see on our television. That's why in one of the seminars I earlier told that we are not only dealing with a pandemic, we are also dealing with an infodemic. Because every morning, I don't know whether you enjoy your morning exercises or not, or breathing exercises or not, which have become very, very popular in today's time. But all of us are doing at least one exercise of forwarding many unfounded, baseless WhatsApp messages about this disease. Of course, you must know how to separate the grain from the chaff. There are some useful messages also coming in the process. But when I refer to infodemic, when you have received 10 or 100 messages or maybe 20 messages a day about the disease and the likely cure and likely do's and don'ts of this particular disease, it is quite natural for any human being, be it a professor, be it a farmer, be it a weaver, anyone will get confused and confounded and perplexed. That's what has been happening. And somehow, now in last 1 month or so, in the context of Assam, I have seen many people have become very, very careless. I think we must put an end to this to some extent, if not for all the people. We must try to make our presence felt in the society, in the surrounding of the place in which stay, in the 10 families, 15 families also. If you can do it, then we can say that charity begins at home. It becomes incumbent upon all the educated people like us, the people who work in a college or a school or a university. I think we have to do that. I think then only at some point of time, when the light at the end of the tunnel becomes visible, I think we'll be able to flatten this curve and flatten many of the other negative things that has really started clouding our minds and influencing our judgment in a negative way. I think this would be very, very important. Let me tell you, some of you may find that generally I am known as an optimist, and I am an optimist. I am an out-and-out optimist. I am an optimist like Hiranyanath, in whose personality robust optimism pulsates, throbs every minute, every second. I know him for last 25, 30 years. But having said that, why I am flagging some of the issues which are very important today in Assam or in Pune, in where I stay, everywhere there is dearth or scarcity of hospital beds. Everywhere initially government said that you are not supposed to be quarantined at home if you develop symptoms. But now governments are forced, because of the circumstances, that mildly symptomatic patients are also supposed to stay at home. And while staying at home, what kind of procedures to be maintained, SOPs to be maintained, many of the people do not know, and some of them, they go guided by this infodemic onslaught that we get in our mobile phone and ultimately end up making a wrong decision. See, we must be clear about one fact, that while moving through this tunnel, there are many people, Hiranya has given that statistics also, who have perished in between. With all due regards for that departed soul and the family members who have lost their near and dear ones to this COVID-19, I think then it becomes really incumbent upon us and obligatory on us to be somewhat more careful. I hope you will not mind that my saying. Generally, I don't like to pontificate. I don't like to advise. But today in the context of Assam, I am more concerned about Assam and India. I think we have to do this. Post-COVID, on a lighter sense, initially I was thinking, and I thought, since Dr. Hiranyanath is also there from the other side of the Atlantic, from the United States of America, I thought, are we calling it post-COVID only because of the two facts that Donald Trump has started wearing masks of late on one or two occasions we have seen on the media? Or maybe is it because of the fact that another very great skeptic of coronavirus in the initial days, he was also afflicted with the disease. I am referring to Bolsonaro of Brazil. So I think these two facts can say that now we are entering in a post-COVID world, but we are not. Let us be very clear about that. But having said that, what Hirono has advised, prescribed about the measures to be undertaken so that post-COVID, once it comes, as we all want, from the bottom, from the core of our heart, things should be somewhat manageable, things should be somewhat easy. Let me tell you a few problems of the social impact or the impact from the health point of view. Whether in Maharashtra or in Assam, I know many people, and you will be knowing even more than me, that people who are down with other diseases in last 6 or 7 months, they have got tremendous amount of problem while going to a hospital. We know only few days back in the Upper Assam town of perhaps Margherita, one, I think 33 or 34-year-old lady, we lost him. The life has been snuffed out only because of the fact that despite having a cardiac distress, she was not admitted despite having a rapid antigen test report. Hospitals are in that they are emphasizing on, they are pressing that you must have got a RT-PCR report which is more confirmatory and conclusive in nature. Then only we'll be able to allow you to get treated. And ultimately we lost that life. And this is only a tiny example. But this cannot be tiny for the family. This cannot be tiny for the small kid that mother has left in this world, for her husband, for her in-laws, for her own parents. I think there are many cases worldwide, and in Assam or India also, we have many this kind of cases, and for that also, we have to be very, very sure. People who are undergoing dialysis or chemotherapy for cancer treatments are having a harrowing time. They are having a harrowing time. I don't know what happened 100 years back during Spanish flu time, but now I can see that this kind of problem being faced by other diseases or the people who are suffering from other diseases are really, really monumental. I think let us not try to trivialize. Nobody has tried to, but sometimes we see in social media, people try to trivialize it. People try to show it in a lighter way that it is not that serious as has been made out to be by some people and some commentators. Secondly, do you know that another socio-economic impact, it is not only a social impact, I think socio-economic impact of some of the people, some of the bright minds of the country who have been working in the private sector for last 10 or 15 years, maybe in the age group of 35 to 36. I am talking about few of the ladies in this western state of Maharashtra. I know that they were bright minds passed out from IIT or NITs and other engineering colleges and MBA institutes. And now they have started a family. Some are in the process of starting a family. They are married. They have taken their house. They have EMI to pay, but suddenly they are jobless. But bank is going to listen for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. Thereafter, whatever loan you have taken, you have to repay. You have to refund it. Because that is the system in which I think if there is no money coming back to the banking system, the whole cycle of credit will get disturbed or disrupted irrevocably, which is not the ideal thing. Nobody can allow that. But what happened from that family's perspective, now I know many cases, some of the ladies in the age group of 30 to 35 have decided to rent their womb. They are going to become surrogate mothers. There is no other way out. How they are going to pay for their EMIs of their car and their houses? So they are renting their womb for somebody else who is rich enough, who can afford, but biologically they cannot become parents biologically. So that mother will be hiring the services of this lady, will be hiring her womb, where a baby will take birth for 9-10 months, and the baby ultimately will be handed over to the parents who has paid for it. So these are all the different kind of problems which COVID has really underlined and amplified in our country. I know many people, after they are deferring their marriages. Now many people will say, if you defer your marriages by 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, heaven is not going to fall. I accept that. But there are many people, they perhaps will not be able to get married despite outliving this tragedy. Despite there are many people who will not be able to start a family. People and ladies, they do not want to go for, they do not want to start a family. Many people, they don't want to get pregnant. These are hard realities of COVID times I have seen in this part of the country. In the private sector, the bright people, people who are earning and all, and how they have faced. In that context, I think, let us be very honest. People like me, people like Dr. Hiranyanath, and most of the people of Marangi College, you are very, very fortunate that we are in a government sector. Let us try to accept that. And that's why then only, I think we'll be more concerned about the duties that are beckoning us, the responsibilities of the Indian citizens. We have been talking about rights. I don't have any problem. You talk about rights, talk about farmers' rights. I have been highlighting with my limited way the problem and plight of the returning migrants. I say we have failed. I don't say only government has failed. It's government plus civil society plus educated people like you, me and all. We have to some extent failed the returning migrants 3-4 months back. When people return to Assam and other places like so-called underdeveloped places like Bihar and West Bengal and Orissa, we could not do enough to provide them some amount of succor, some amount of comfort during their journey. That was an arduous journey. That was a strenuous journey. So these things are very, 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 very fresh in our mind. Do not allow, don't get bogged down by that, but do not allow those things to go out of your mind. Otherwise, we'll forget about our responsibility. I am very clear about that everyone, instead of telling, we'll tell government, we'll demand government, we'll criticize government, but at the same time, we should also be concerned about our duties and responsibilities. I think Dr. Sharma highlighted beautifully while inaugurating the program about the problem of the tea garden laborers, or especially tea garden laborers have been facing problem for last more than 100 years. But now he highlighted the problem of the small tea growers, if I heard him correctly. And you know, Marangi Mahabidyalaya is surrounded by small tea growers, all right, left and center. And those problems, whether we have been able to give any kind of solution. Solution may not be in economic terms. Solution can be advisory in nature. Solution can be, we can show our empathy that we are also with you during these tough times. I think we must try to do it. I'm very sure when ZB chairman himself said during inaugurating the program that small tea growers problems have also been going on for quite some time, have become quite pronounced in last 6 or 7 months. I think we must try to do our little bit to ameliorate or to mitigate the suffering faced by these particular people. Hiranya was talking about a very nicely lopsided development. Many soaps have been announced by Government of India. Many things have been announced. We know Central Bank, Government of India, state government, but it's good. We don't blame the government because they have also not seen this kind of crisis after independence. So they also know there will be some trial and error. They also do not know what kind of problems they are there after 6 months, maybe in 2021, maybe in mid-2021. So having said that, whatever has been done, it may not be enough, but I think it's a great beginning. But that lopsidedness, and the importance of informal sector, importance in a negative way in being ignored, I think that is a challenge for all economists. That's a challenge for all the professors of not only Marangi College, but all the people who are practitioners or educators of economics department. I think Dr. Nath will agree with me that informal sector, to what extent in India we have been able to quantify their problems, their strengths, their susceptibilities. I think that is also another challenge that is staring on the collective face of learned citizenry, quote unquote, in which we like to include ourselves. I think that is another challenge that have been staring at us. We deserve to, we must try to give an answer. I don't say that every question will be answered by us. We are capable of answering everything. I don't say that. I don't believe in that. But we must try to make a genuine effort in trying to answer the questions of the have-nots. For long enough in this country and all throughout the world, almost majority of the places, I think we have been ignoring the problems of the disadvantaged section of the people. Go to USA, go to UK, go to Spain, everywhere, come to India, come to Assam. I think have-nots really had a raw deal till now. So in this kind of critical situation, accentuated by COVID-19, we have seen that problems of have-nots during COVID-19 time has also been far more intense than what we face. We have been till now, God willing, I hope most of the people are well. I hope that all of you remain well. You be careful. But till now, we have been doing webinars. We are attending offices. In my case, I have been attending offices from June onwards, daily in a place. But God willing, I have not fallen sick. I hope the same thing for you also. But at the same time, we have got the luxury of doing some Facebook, then singing a song in Star Maker, giving a lecture in a webinar like this. But try to think about those people who are in informal sector, who are in private sector, who have lost their jobs or whose salaries have been reduced substantially. I think we have to do that. That is a big challenge for everyone. Of course, the optimistic point noted by Dr. Hiranya Kumar Nath, and I also like to underline that the death rate is plummeting all throughout the country, all throughout the world, and more so in the country. Whereas in Assam, in last 15 days, in last fortnight, we have seen that many of the important ministers and bureaucrats are also telling that different strain of the disease have been found, and now the death rate is slightly increasing. But if you take the larger statistics of India, death rate in India is far more or far better than what we see in some of the developed countries. There can be hundreds of different justifiable reasons for that. Since I am not an expert on that, I'll not be going to hazard my assumption on that particular aspect. Now, GDP and all, Hiranya has so beautifully said, I don't want to go into details. I think this is a field where angels straight to fear. Why should a fool like me should go and venture it out? Hiranya has beautifully done it. GDP, the shrinkage, the comparative shrinkage, what he has seen in USA, in UK, and also in India. But my fear is whether shrinkage in economic space will lead to or has led to some shrinkage in the liberal space of the country or liberal space of the world. Are we going to see a resurgence of strongmen all throughout the world, like Putin, like Trump, like Erdogan in Turkey? Will people, the vulnerable, the common people will feel that instead of a democratic debate with not many people, they are trying to discuss the pros and cons in highly rhetorical, sometimes bombastic words. Let us have one strong man who will take care of our problem. I think that is another challenge that has been going on psychologically, maybe unknowingly, with many in many minds, many common people's mind, not only in our country, all throughout the world. That is likely to be a challenge once this situation subsides, once we outlive, once we survive. Let's hope we'll survive this. And after surviving, when we see light at the end of the tunnel, whether we are going to see a rise of illiberalism, I think that will be a bigger challenge than COVID-19. I think for all the citizens, we are all citizens, we are not subjects. We don't no longer in a kingdom, we are no longer in an empire. We have been given some rights by the constitution of the respective countries, and at the same time I was highlighting from the beginning about our duties and our responsibilities. But at the end of the day, are we going to see a country or a world view in which only the democratic ideals will not be invoked as luminously or as with a sense of celebration as it is being done till 10 years back, till 5 years back? I think that will be a challenge in the post-COVID world. And this challenge, many of you will perhaps may not feel the intensity of it, the magnitude of this problem. But those who are concerned with the world economy or world politics, how the emergence of strongman in last 10 years, if you have been making a study about that, I think there is something to be scared of in the whole context of the whole world, because much of the geographies we see, I gave the example of Trump and Bolsonaro, who are skeptics about this COVID-19, but both are known as strongmans. Putin, we have seen. Erdogan, we have seen. Hagia Sophia, what he has done, we all know that. I don't want to go into details because this is beyond the ambit of this particular debate or this particular webinar. So that fear is also, I think many people are having, we must keep in mind. Then another thing, another very practical thing. I am very happy to see that the frontline workers like doctors, the nurses, the ward boys, and all other government officials and private sector NGO people who are trying to directly mitigate the suffering of this suffering brought in or impacted by COVID-19, they have been given the whole society, The government, everyone is cherishing, celebrating their effort, saluting their efforts. I don't have any problem. I don't have any grudge. But I told this in other webinars also, and today I will tell you, don't accept what I say, but try to think it over. Try to think that the banker, all throughout in Indian context, I don't know about other countries, from the very beginning, bankers are those people who have been going to the banks and whatever services are supposed to render to the demanding and discerning public, they have been doing more or less since the lockdown day number 1. But we do not see that kind of romanticization. We do not see that kind of lionization about the banking community at large. I think this is also another instance of discrimination or lopsided development, if I can borrow the terminology used by Dr. Hiranyonath, in respect of society's treatment to bankers. I strongly feel, being a development banker in the country, we have lost many bankers in Maharashtra itself. We have lost many bankers to this disease, but somehow society is somewhat insufficient in recognizing the efforts made by the bankers in trying to give uninterrupted banking services to the people. I don't say that just because I happen to be a development banker, I am not a banker in a traditional sense of the term, that you have to tell that bankers have done enough, but just try to think it over. Try to think it over, the Assam Gramin Vikas Bank near to your college or near to your hometown. You try to think it over, State Bank of India branch, United Bank of India branch, how those people have been doing. Only during the point when containment zone was declared in the bank itself, rest of the time in last 4 or 5 months, they have been doing. But whether they are getting that sort of recognition, forget about government. We always tell about government. Whether you, me, we have been able to give that kind of salute metaphorically to the bankers who are really hazarding a lot of the risk to deliver that uninterrupted banking service to people like you and me. I think that also one of the important aspects I would like to highlight. Educational learning deficit, Dr. Hiranyonath has so beautifully enunciated, so beautifully say that even in a developed, advanced country like United States of America, there are a lot of societal cleavages separating the haves and have-nots. And all the people in USA also do not have access to fancy laptops, fancy mobile phones, or even very rudimentary form of tablets through which they can uninterruptedly learn whatever inputs professors will be providing from their comfort of their respective homes. Even in USA, we don't have. Then you can well imagine what will happen in India, what will happen in Assam. I think the same thing, that learning deficit only for the people who can afford. But what about the people who cannot afford this? For whom a 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, the price tag of 7,000-8,000 cost mobile phone is a luxury for them. What they are going to do with this? What kind of learning they will have? Do you have a robust network system? I have seen while talking, many of the people are moving out, they are coming in. It is not because they want to go out and come in. Most of them, it is because of network issue. It's a standing commentary. Just now someone has come, just now someone will go out. It is a standing commentary on the infrastructure related to bandwidth in the country or in Assam now. In that context, even if you can afford a mobile phone or a laptop, how you are going to have learning as you used to do in the pre-COVID times? So those are, I think, those are the difficult questions, inappropriate questions, but these are the questions I think we must ask while we try to say the challenges in the socioeconomic challenges or the psychological challenges and different kind of challenges that this disease has brought into this country, to this world. I was talking about sociological thing. Let's come to psychological aspect also. See, all of us, to a different degree, we live in a state of fear and anxiety. For last 6 months, we are in that particular state. When we listen to a beautiful number by Dr. Bhupen Hazarika or Lata Mangeshkar, we temporarily forget. If somebody listens to the erudite speech of Dr. Hiranyakumar Nath, they can temporarily forget for 45 minutes that COVID is there, maybe knocking at some doors in my neighborhood. Who knows at what places? But again, we are jolted back to the reality. Nowadays, we know when we talk to people, when I talk to Hiranya over phone, after some time we'll be discussing about how is the COVID scene in Huntsville or Texas, that Houston, where he stays. And ultimately, he will discuss about Mongoldoy, and I will discuss about maybe Nagaon, Jorhat, and Guwahati. It's bound to happen. So some amount of psychological stress or distress we have been exposed to day in and day out. So we must try to take care of that also. And for that, since I want that people who are associated with Marangi College or the teachers community, all the students, since I was highlighting about your duties and responsibilities, it is my bounden duty to also request you very humbly that you must think about your own psychological wellness also. If you are psychologically disturbed, if you are scared unnecessarily all the time, then you will not be able to fulfill your duty. A democratic republic wants in a time of crisis from a responsible citizen like you. So my request to you is that we must take care of that, because without see, sometimes we have to forget about all those things also. See, the mind, the kind of thought processes we have been flooded with, bombarded with all the time, day in and day out, from beginning till the time we go to bed. I think it's truly amazing. Nobody can I think nobody can describe it, nobody can define it in any particular language with one word, with one sentence, or maybe with one book. That is how complex or intricate our thought process and psychological aspects are. So having said that, I will tell only one thing: let us try to be positive. And when we try to be positive, we must again go back what Dr. Hirendranath said initially in the beginning of his lecture. He was talking about that how we can find the light among the dark clouds, how we can find the opportunities among different challenges. And as I was telling metaphorically, that this is a tunnel, only thing that light is proved to be elusive, but we are very sure collectively when we run towards it, by maintaining all the social distance, by maintaining all the other procedures that have been given to us, advised to us by the government, as well as more importantly by the doctors and health professionals, I think we'll be able to handle it to some extent. There will be some casualties, we know that will be the sad and most unfortunate part of it. As we have seen in Assam also, many of the young lives have been snuffed out. People who drove to hospital after 3-4 days, they could not come back in their usual physical form. They left this world. So this is also a reality. So our aim and objective should be how to reduce that. And for that only, we all have to look forward, and we all have to do our job. See, many of the things you may find that in a seminar which is heavily loaded with economic, should have been heavily loaded with economic jargons and all. Why this man with red shirt, Mayur Bora, is talking only about societal things? See, these things are very important, not only because of the fact that Professor Nath has already highlighted all the economic aspects, and you all know from the economics department. My job is to underline some of the facts, and now I can buttress my argument by invoking what the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has said recently. What he has said? He said that there should be a ceasefire at home. What does he mean? What did he mean when he says ceasefire at home? Ceasefire at home means because of lockdown. These are also different issues. These are also different outcomes of the lockdown and the disease. That there is increasing instances of domestic violence in many of the households. You will know it better when you look at your neighborhood. Of this 20, 30, 50, 100 people, there will be 1 or 2 families in which the constant presence of all the members, and especially the husband and wife, unfortunately in some cases has led to domestic violence. And otherwise, why a person of United Nations Secretary General's stature, Antonio Guterres, has called for ceasefire in domestic violence? That means COVID-19 and the resultant, the incidental lockdown that has been announced by different governments all throughout the world, in different geographies of the world, it has led to some amount of domestic violence in different households. So that also we have to take into account. We must take into account, because ultimately, as a student of history, I would like to invoke history, that history of humanity is not only history of wars and battles. It's a history of trade and commerce. It is a history of reconciliation. It is a history of reconstruction. It is a history of definitely war and battles. And it is also a history of pandemic. We know different civilization in other side of the Atlantic, especially in South America and Central America, in Mexico, Peru, Brazil, all those, we know about the Inca civilization, we know about the Aztec civilization, we know about the Mayans. What has happened? When European went in mid-15th century Inca civilization, when Herman Cortes from Spain went there, a famous writer had written, and I think I also referred, and Professor Nath also referred to that book, that Guns, Germs and Steel by Gerard Diamond, which is a Pulitzer Prize winning book, in which the Europeans traveled to America to colonize them, to rule over them, and they carried, they could do this not only with superior gunpowder or superior intellect, but mostly due to the diseases or the germs that they were carrying. Smallpox is nothing small about it. A big civilization have been wiped out in South America, in Latin America, because of this smallpox. So humankind is not new to this kind of germs, this kind of pandemic. Even earlier, you know about Black Plague and the Black Deaths in Europe. We know in mid 15th century, 16th century, in different parts of Europe, how plague has totally ravaged, totally destroyed, decimated the population in different empires and kingdoms. So human beings are not new to that, but human beings are resilient. That's what I think initially it was told when Dr. Nath talked about optimism, when he talked about opportunity, he was also indirectly referring to resilience of the human being. How those civilizations, of course, they fell, they collapsed, but on that collapsed field, some new civilization grew up. And this saga of human innovation and this saga of human genius, if I can use the word, continues. It continues since time immemorial, and it will also continue. This saga, this particular spirit of human nature, I don't know personally who will survive this. I hope everyone, every citizen of this country, as Dr. Bhupen Hazarika said in his beautiful number, Manuhe Manuhar Babe, I also want everyone should survive. Everyone should outlive the present tragedy, the health hazard, but all may not be able to do it. But I know at the end, the spirit of human resilience will cleanse the day for us. And that is the day when we'll see some light at the end of the tunnel. That is the day, I think the challenges Dr. Nath was highlighting about Indian economy or the world economy will turn into some sort of opportunities. And that is the day in which, if we continue to do our duties and also clamor for and demand for our rights from the citizens, from the governments, if they deny at around any point of time, then I think we'll be a fuller individual. We'll be fuller citizens, we'll be concerned about our duties and also about our rights. And while doing so, I think we'll be able to do little bit for the disadvantages, for the have-nots of our society, for which I think we deserve to think, we deserve to do something so that whatever little comfort we are still having, that could be shared to some extent. Only then the horizon for the human beings in general will be bright. I know today's webinar, I don't know what sort of brightness I could bring. I sounded initially very, I was intrigued by saying that post-COVID world. But even then, I feel at the end of the day, if you're concerned about our rights and duties, if you're concerned about the fact, or if you're passionate about the fact, the spirit of human resilience will triumph over all the tragedies, then I think we all are, as Dr. Bhupen Hazarika used to sing in the last song, in all the functions, the famous number by Paul Robson's, we are in the same boat, brother. I know many people are not in the same boat. Many people will try and get us on board. Many people will not come also. Even then, you and me, the so-called concerned citizenry, we must try to act in a way so that nobody will be able to use this word called so-called while telling about someone like Moyur Bora. They can always say, but some respected professors like Marangi College and other colleges, nobody should dare to use the word so-called. If we can ensure that, I think we'll be able to ensure some light at the end of the tunnel. With these few words, I would like to thank the organizers, my friend Dipti Tamuli. I know she would be very unpopular in the college from tomorrow onwards. She will do many of the things that whom you have called. This man has come and told so many things, advising us. I'm sorry, Dipti, as I am an outspoken man, having been invited, I tried to speak my mind. I hope you will excuse me. And as you initially told that till now we are friends, if we can survive this, if you can outlive this tragedy, which we are very sure we'll try very hard to survive and outlive, you and me, and metaphorically speaking, when I say you, any professor, any representative of Marangi College or the larger teacher community of Assam, we will be friends. We'll have differences, but we'll try to sort out the differences in the larger interest of the light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Mayur. Very much. Thank you very much for your deliberation.
I hope you are safe from tomorrow.
Hello. Actually, yes, please, what it have. Actually, it's being a motivational speaker. Being a motivational speaker, you can motivate us, you can influence us a lot. Really, we're enjoying your very insightful and comprehensive presentation. And we are lucky enough, we feel very lucky enough having us a very meaningful presentation, very meaningful. And if I literally say that they have translated this evening, both of you have translated this evening into a very meaningful one, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Now, may I request Mr. Navakomal Bora start Navakomal?
Hello? Hello, Nabo? Hello?
Hello.
Your voice is not clear. Hello?
Yes.
Nabo?
Hello.
Voice is not clear. Your voice is not clear, Nabo. I have some questions to by some participants to Dr. Hiranyanath sir. May I take the questions?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Sir, first question I have from Pankaj Jyoti Hazarika to
Yes.
Hiranyanath sir. How the God will be able to increase the purchasing power of the people if the government depends on God? Sir?
If the government depends on what?
God, sir.
Well, purchasing power during the time of a crisis, of course, we economists, I don't know about the God part, but during a crisis, generally the economists think that the government has to infuse or inject liquidity or inject purchasing power to people. So there are several ways you can do that. The government can directly transfer money to people, which I think to some extent government has done in India, or they can do create jobs. That is the one that I was talking about when I said that the policymakers, the government should be very careful in choosing fiscal stimulus or fiscal policies, because they, on one hand, they have to solve the short-term problems or short-run problems. At the same time, they also have to choose policies in such a way so that they benefit the economy in the long run. So one example would be, let's say, infrastructure projects, right? So if you build infrastructure projects that will provide employment to a large number of people, and that will also have a long-run impact in the economy. So this is one way to transferring purchasing power to the hands of the people. Of course, again, as I said in the beginning, of course, because social distancing is something that was required in order to prevent the spread of the virus, So initially, I think transferring cash to at least to the people in the low income area was I think the most relevant one. But then going forward, we cannot maintain this social, or we'll have to find ways where we can do work, or we can get involved in economic activities in a safer way. And that's when I think this kind of government policies or government work will create jobs and also will transfer purchasing power. Thank you. I hope.
Thank you, sir. Sir, another question from Sasanka Dhabal Soikia. He said that there are news about the new low GDP growth rate. Low GDP growth rate of India. What effective measures should be adopted to boost up the growth rate in countries like India in the post-COVID world, post-COVID period? Sir?
Thank you. Again, generally, economists will recommend whatever I have already said. It's basically a stimulus. But again, I think the policymakers have to be very careful what kind of policies they pick. And when we talk about this decline in GDP, there is another aspect which generally we don't talk about. So media is reporting that GDP has gone down by 23.9%. In fact, it was funny that some of the news media in Assam, they actually say GDP is negative, which cannot be true. GDP is not negative. GDP has gone down. That means the total volume of goods and services produced in the country has gone down. One aspect which generally media will not talk about, and some of the policymakers also don't kind of openly talk about, when there is a decline, how this decline is distributed among the people. So that's very important. If this low GDP is not really affecting this people in the lower spectrum or lower strata of the income distribution, then well, I would say that is okay for a while. But unfortunately, that is not the case. So I mean, as I have already said, this pandemic or this economic disruption has disproportionately affected the people, the vulnerable people, and that is worrisome. And obviously, going forward, first of all, even now, the economic activities have not resumed to the full capacity. That is a problem. And again, like Mayur has said, we don't know where we are. There is kind of this shifting goalpost, right? So we are at some points. People say that by October it will be over. Now people are saying it will probably take even longer, and nobody knows when we will get out of this tunnel, or will get out of this. And as a result, how long the government, or at what level the government will have to intervene, that is a challenging issue. And it is very difficult to speculate. Even if you run all kinds of models that normally we do, doesn't give much answer. So if you look at what IMF has said over last few months, that has been changing very rapidly. At some point, they said, well, the growth rate will slow down. It will not be a negative growth. Now they have changed it to negative growth rate worldwide, and they have different projections for different countries. But who knows? Maybe next week there will be another report which will say that there will be growth rate will be even, the decline rate will be even higher. And when these things keep changing, it is very difficult to again figure out what policy will be more effective or will help economy recover quickly. But one thing I can say, and I have been arguing this for a long period of time, I have written articles even, I think, and again, I think I was listening to former governor of RBI, Raghuram Rajan. I think he said a similar thing, that while choosing policy, the policymakers have to be very careful, and they should, because the policy space is constrained, and also the resources are limited for the government, and as a result, they have to be very, very careful. They have to be very, very prudent. They have to choose policies which will benefit the economy in the short run and will have some effect in the long run as well. So that's kind of the recommendation. But for me or for somebody else, advising or saying this is easy, but then doing it is difficult. Being a economic policymaker is not a very fun thing to do. And it's a balancing act. And then again, economic policy happens not in the economic sphere. It is heavily influenced and heavily contextualized by the politics. And that's why it is a difficult, it is a challenging task. Thank you.
Sir, another question to you, sir, from Lutfur Rahman. He
Yes.
said, is there any sustainable solution for labor class after COVID-19 and also business sector?
I think, again, this is an opportunity to do some introspection when it comes to our economic system or the economy as a whole. We still have some institutions from the colonial period, and we have not changed it. And some of the reasons why we don't do it, because it's politically sensitive, or it is challenging to some extent. So no political party or no government wants to address those issues. And so they will keep postponing or kicking the can down the road. So when it comes to labor, I think it's high time that we seriously think about the labor laws. When I say institutions, I'm talking about those institutional factors. I think we should give a serious thought about those institutional factors, particularly the labor laws. So there is a pressing need for the reform of the labor laws, because these are very old and nobody wants to address or reform those labor laws, because again, it is politically could be very suicidal, but then somebody will have to step up and will have to do that. And when it comes to, and I think in another webinar I was talking about, when it comes to having an institutional framework for the workers in the informal sector, we can actually take a look at some of the Southeast Asian countries. They have been managing these things quite well, reasonably well, compared to other countries. For example, South Korea or Singapore, so they have this protection provided under their law to these vulnerable groups, or to this group who provide some essential services. So I think that is it. This is high time. We should think seriously about reforming labor laws, and also when it comes to the businesses, particularly the petty businesses. I think all these efforts about financial inclusion, or even through this tax reform that was done a few years back, they're trying to formalize some of the informal transactions, which is in a way, well, there are, I think even among the economists, there are a lot of arguments back and forth about whether GST or the tax reform was a good thing or not. But then there are certain good aspects of it, which I think is essential even for a crisis like this. I'm not saying that, I am not commenting on the tax itself, but I'm talking about the framework under which this tax reform works. So yes, those are the areas I think where we have to focus on. Institutions are very, very important for the smooth running of the economy, and particularly in periods like this. And this is 21st century, so a lot of things that we had in the form of the institutions, I think it's high time that we change them, because it's a different time, it's a different work environment, it's a different economy. The economic relationships are very complicated now in the modern world. And so we have to take into account all these things. And then now going forward, I think we'll have another issue which I think needs to be addressed. For example, there will be an extensive use of this information and communication technology, and we do not have this institutional framework to handle all the issues that will arise out of this extensive use of information and communication technology. I think the Prime Minister in his Independence Day speech, he was talking about some sort of cybersecurity law. And I hope that is done in the right way, because there are dangers as well. We have to be very clear and careful that in the name of security, we also maintain and we uphold the democratic values, which are very, very important for our society. And again, I think I gave a very long answer to your question, but whenever I think about this long-run solutions, I always think in terms of the institutions, because institutions are very, very important. Economy will not run smoothly unless we have very good, efficient, effective institutions, and that's where I think we need a lot of work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Nabo, come on. Please go. Please carry on, Nabo. Hello?
Before I also would like to thank Moyur for an excellent speech. It is always great to listen to him. So I would like to thank him for his excellent speech, covering a lot of stuff which are very, very important for everyone. Thank you, Moyur.
And you have always been very kind and inspiring.
Hello?
Hello,
Nabo.
Yes, you go on.
Carry on, please.
You please go on. You please go on.
Okay. Sir, another question for you, sir.
Yes.
Sir, from Manoj Saikia. He asks, how can we meet the freedom of choice amidst the challenges of this COVID period?
Well, I think, since our day-to-day life has been severely restricted because of all the precautions that we have to take, obviously, you cannot exercise your freedom of choice to the utmost level, I would say. But I would say this is a temporary thing, and I mention freedom of choice in the context of health and education, because all development economists know that this capability approach to development, where Amartya Sen has made a significant contribution, he basically is of the opinion that education and health builds your capability to enjoy the freedom of choice. And again, there are times like this, which is, again, if we use our economic concepts, this is a public bad, right? So there are public goods and there are public bad. So this is a public bad, and there are, I think, some of the stuff that we enjoy, it's been restrained, and for some time we'll have to live with it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much. Some questions to Moyur. Hello, Moyur.
Diti ma'am.
Carry on, yeah.
Diti ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am.
Yeah.
I was ready to ask questions to Moyur, sir.
Okay. Nabo, please. Nabo, please.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes. There are some questions for Moyur, sir. The first question is from Lodhpur Amman. What will the social change after COVID-19? And what type of policy has been taken by the government to face the social challenge after COVID-19?
Thank you, Mr. Bora, and thank you, the person who has asked the question. I wish I had the answer. But having said that, I will say, and I will again try to underline, what I told during my speech also, that policy in this particular case has to be very, very dynamic. It has to in conformity with the evolving time. We can't say that we'll enunciate a policy, we'll propound a policy, and after a month also, just because we did it, we'll stick to it, come what may. I think that sort of dynamism, that sort of desire to change in conformity with the changing time, in consultation with the brightest minds of the world, is the need of the hour. Whether it is state government, whether it is central government, whether it is in Indian context, whether it is in the context of Hungary or Germany or Bolivia. I think every government, they must try to learn. We have to think that these nations are nothing but imagined communities. We are all one human race. Whatever best practices we have seen in a particular place, that needs to be imbibed and that needs to be practiced so that we can mitigate some of the suffering of the people in the times to come. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, another question from Deepika Das. Informal workers are always subject of discrimination. COVID-19 further deteriorates their situation. The existing policies for them are not successful till now. So, what type of policy will be more fruitful for them in your view?
See, first of all, the first three sentences that you spoke on behalf of her, I totally agree with her. Especially in the context of India, what she spoke about the informal sector is absolutely right. There is no denying the fact. But we can only expect, and I think more than us, the economic policy planners and some of the bright minds of economics like say Raghuram Raman and other scholars, maybe Dr. Hiranya Kumar Nath and other scholars who have been doing India proud by working in prestigious universities worldwide, they should contribute, they should advise, but at the same time, they may be willing to advise, they may be willing to give their suggestion in this regard. But to what extent the people who are likely to implement that, are they receptive to that? That is what I was highlighting during my speech, that we should be concerned. When we say we, I include civil society, I include government. We should be concerned about your rights as well as duties. My sense of duty, if I am in the top sort, if I decide for a particular geography, then I have to be receptive to the idea that is coming from other side of Atlantic, the other side of Nile River, the other side of Brahmaputra, or maybe from the largest river island of Majuli. If I have that eclectic approach, if I have that approach to do in an atmosphere of consultation and coordination, I don't think any solution or any effort to find a solution will be problematic, but it will not be insurmountable. We'll be able to do it. I am quite hopeful. I am quite optimistic on that. But only thing, we have to be receptive. We means here the people who matter. They have to be receptive to these ideas coming. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, another question from Rupat Devodikari. How much time India will take to recover its economy?
Oh, at least one thing I can say that I don't believe in, I can show also. This being a webinar on a lighter vein. We have discussed about so many serious topics. You can see this thing. I don't wear a ring also. My wife is very unhappy all the times that you do not even wear our wedding ring. I want to tell by invoking about the fact that I don't wear rings. I don't believe in astrology. So had I been an astrologer, maybe I would have been able to give a definitive answer, or I would have pretended to. I don't know. No astrologers I feel will know, but they will pretend to know everything. But having said that, I have a sense. I may be 100% wrong. I'll be caught in my wrong foot. But even then, I'm hazarding a guess. I think this is not going to happen in the year 2021. Maybe in the year 2022. Things may start brightening up. I know many people will be concerned, many people will be unhappy, they will be disappointed, they will be despondent to listen to 2022 when I talk about in September 2020. But I know with little bit of experience, what I have gathered, I think for brightening up in the economic front, I think earliest can be 2022 and not before that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So another question from Vinod Goswami, if government investment is increased for setting up medium and small industries, then will it not increase employment but also income of the people? How government should come out?
See, how government should come out, that's what I told. Whether it is state government, any central government in any country, they should see. Hirondo has beautifully said, economics is ultimately politics. There is some economic fundamental sense, but it is guided in many cases depending on which time. If the election is due next year, the amount of politics in influencing the contours of the economic policy will be far more intense and deep. If the election is 3 years away, then I think the effect will be somewhat light. So my appeal to the people, my appeal to those politicians, my appeal to those top bureaucrats, that whatever you do it in consultation with the economists and the bright economic minds. And I don't say one or two. There are different schools of thought, even in the field of economy. So in the field of economics, Dr. Hirendranath propounds something else, which may be relevant in a certain sector, in Assam, but in other area, maybe a scholar from Hungary, maybe a scholar from Russia, what he says maybe more can be contextualized far more deeply and intensely in the case of Assam. So my idea, again, I will go back to my earlier answer, be receptive, be rational, and whatever ideas come to your mind, you try to analyze with some bright minds and come to a solution which is ultimately oriented towards permanent welfare of the people, not about creating some gimmicks by which you can catch some votes, but not you can think about the country or the state as a whole. What I mean to say in one sentence, we want this tragic, challenging time demands that we need statesmen more than politicians. But there is a proverb, there is a dictum in English, if wishes are horses. So I don't want to complete the dictum. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, another question from Manoj Soikia. Should we see the post-COVID period only in terms of economy? Will it be an economic condition in future or an event usual?
No, I think it's a good question, but the fact that Marangi College decided to invite me, the fact that Marangi College gave me the liberty to talk about beyond economics is also a testimony to the fact that what question he is asking, actually the answer is also implicit in his question. The economy is most important. Economic challenges is the most important or paramount importance. But having said that, social impact, psychological impact, and all other kinds of impact from the health point of view, these are also extremely, extremely important and essential. We cannot put any kind of challenge under the carpet just by talking about bright economic figures. Ultimately, we want growth for what? For who? We want growth for people. If the people are not there in adequate quantity, I mean to say, if the disease doesn't destroy a major portion of our population, then what for we are talking about growth? That growth, that economics must have got a human face. And I think on this particular point, there can be a lot of debates about the modus operandi to be operated by, to be applied, or to be employed by different scholars or different economists in a given situation. But the fact that every economic policy must have got a human face, I think will be endorsed by everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, another question from one of my friends. He is from RI Bhopal, Premananda Sethi. He asked the question personally. That question is to you. And the question is, how do you think that God is the only agency to help to overcome the pandemic situation of people in India?
No. He is telling which agency in India has been able to overcome it. I think if you take a larger context, nobody has been able to overcome it. I can take pride in the fact, I can be happy about the fact that I have not been affected till now. But God forbid, who knows? Who knows what happens in the next month, in the next week? Similarly, no agency can say that I am not directly exposed to any of the likely effect that is likely to come from this particular tragedy or from the onslaught of this disease. So So I will remain insular for all time to come. You cannot be a thick skin like a rhino in a critical situation like this. Nobody knows at what point of time your vulnerability will resurface and make yourself susceptible to the disease or maybe some other negative effect that is emerging from the disease. So I think, at least as far as I am concerned, it's not hope to hazard a guess or presumption to stick my neck out and tell that this particular agency for all times to come can insulate himself from the impact of the COVID-19. I think this will be a wrong idea, or this will be a wrong line of thinking. That's my view. Of course, I appreciate what a wonderful question he has asked, but I don't think in today's context, nowhere in the world, we can't say any individual, any agency can insulate himself from what is going to happen from tomorrow. Maybe after the discovery of the vaccine, discovery of the empirical medicine, then we can say, and I'd be one of the happiest person to join your personal friend who asked a question personally to you to pose before me, that I will also rejoice with him. I will also be as ecstatic as he is or you are. Thank you, Mr. Bora.
Thank you, sir. Sir, with this question, our query session is completed. And the microphone is over to Jugaljuti Bora. Hello, Jugaljuti. Hello. Hello. Hello, Jugaljuti. Hello.
Hello, Jugal. Jugal, unmute yourself. Jugal, unmute yourself. Hello? Hello, Jugal. Unmute yourself. Hello? Hello?
Hello. Hello.
Unmute yourself. Jugal,
Yeah.
unmute yourself. Due to some technical problems, maybe Jugal Bora is not audible. So I request our assistant Professor Monikankana Boru to give the vote of thanks to our resource person and all the participants. Over to Monikankana, please. Moni, please.
Yes, ma'am. Am I hearable, ma'am?
Yes, yes.
Thank you, ma'am, for giving me this opportunity. It's my privilege to propose the vote of thanks in this special occasion. So, first of all, I, Monikankana Boru, on behalf of Department of Economics, Marangi Mahabidyalaya, and the entire organizing committee of this international webinar, would like to express a very, very heartfelt thanks to our most valued invited resource person, Dr. Hirendranath sir, Professor of Economics, Sam, Houston State University, United States of America, and Mayur Bora sir, critic, writer, and motivational speaker, for sharing your tremendous knowledge through your valuable speech and giving so much of your quality time to us from your busy schedule. It has made our program very prestigious and meaningful today. Actually, we're lucky enough to get into touch with both of you. Secondly, I would like to thank our honorable chairman, Dr. Vivekananda Sharma sir, for providing encouragement, support, and cooperation at every point of time. I want to offer my gratitude to our respected principal, Mohan Bora sir, for his inspiration, guidance, and presence in this webinar. I may like to express a very, very big thanks to IQAC coordinator, Yugaljiti Bora sir, for your solid support, technical contribution, and guidance. Thank you very much for giving an excellent coverage to the entire webinar. I am also happy to express my vote of thanks to our beloved head of the department, Dipti Tamuli ma'am, for her support and guidance. A special thanks to all the participants for attending the webinar and making it successful one. Hope all the participants are extremely benefited from this webinar. Actually, we are also extremely benefited from the speech provided by the both of our resource person. Last not the least, thanks to all the people who either directly and indirectly help us to make our webinar successful one. Thank you everyone once again for joining with us. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, Moni. Hello, Yugal Chati. Hello, Jugal. Are you audible? Where are you? Hello.
No, please, you conclude it. So it's a network problem. I have a network problem. Please,
You
you
are
conclude.
audible now. You are audible now. Please carry
Please,
on.
you
You are
conclude
audible
the
now.
meeting, ma'am.
Okay, carry on, please. This is the last part, and you are the coordinator. Please carry on.
Okay, ma'am. Am I audible? Yes.
Yes, you are.
So respected resource persons, Professor Hiranman sir, Mr. Moyubara sir, so we are quite satisfied with your very deep, informative presentations. We are lucky enough to be with you this evening. So again, I thank you on behalf of Marangi Mahabidyalaya for giving us such opportunity to run such kind of international webinar. Thank you, and hope will be always with you, and your helping hand will be us in our future. And thank you everyone. Thank you all the participants. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
you
you
very
from
much.
my side
Moyo.
also. Thank you, Dipti.
Thank
Thank you,
you,
Dipti.
Moyo.
Thank you. My thanks to all the college, Orial, the whole family of Marangi College. Thank you.
Thank
So we'll
you.
meet you again. So we'll again invite you to our college.
I'd love to.
Mohit sir,
Let the light at the end of the tunnel be visible.
আৰু এটা কথা নহয়, ময়ূৰ,
Ah,